Hey everybody, Nick Espinosa, your chief security fanatic here, and today we are talking about Facebook because Facebook thinks its AI or artificial intelligence can save it from continuing to be a destructive force in society. I think you're going to agree with me at the end of this. That's probably not true. This is excellent reporting, once again, coming from the Wall Street Journal that's been blowing the lid off of Facebook for the last 2-3 weeks. Now, Facebook executives have long said that artificial intelligence would address the company's chronic problems, keeping what it deems hate speech and excessive violence, as well as underage users, off their platform. The future, though, is farther away than those executives suggest, according to internal documents reviewed by the Wall Street Journal. Now, Facebook's AI, according to these documents, can't consistently identify first-person shooting videos, racist rants, and even, in one notable episode that puzzled internal researchers apparently for weeks, the difference between cockfighting and car crashes. Two radically different things. Now, on hate speech, according to the documents, Facebook employees have estimated the company has only removed a fraction of the posts that violate its rules, a low single-digit percent, according to them. When Facebook's algorithms aren't certain enough that content violates the rules to delete it, the platform then just shows that material to users less often, but the accounts that post the material go unpunished. Obviously, a problem. Now, the employees were analyzing Facebook's success at enforcing its own rules on content that it spells out in detail internally and in public documents like its community standards that you and I can read. The documents reviewed by the Wall Street Journal also show that Facebook 2 years ago cut the time human reviewers focused on hate speech complaints from users and made other tweaks that reduced the overall number of complaints. Basically, they made changes to make their stats look lower, therefore better for Facebook. That made the company more dependent on artificial intelligence enforcement of its rules and inflated the apparent success of that technology to its public statistics. According to these documents, those responsible for keeping the platform free from content, free from content Facebook deems offensive or dangerous, acknowledge that the company is nowhere close to being able to reliably screen it. Basically, Facebook juked the stats, said, oh yeah, we're doing an amazing job. The internal documents say, no, they fudged the entire thing. They're cooking the books, and now we have proof. And I quote, a senior engineer and research scientist in mid 2019 who noted in these internal documents, and I quote, the problem is that we do not and possibly never will have a model that captures even a majority of integrity harms, particularly in sensitive areas. Now, he also estimated that the company's automated systems removed posts that generated just 2% of the views of hate speech on the platform that violated its rules. 2% is a far cry from 100. Quote, recent estimates suggest that unless there's a major change in the strategy, it will be very difficult to improve this beyond 10-20% in the short-medium term. Now, this past March, another team at Facebook employees drew a similar conclusion, estimating that those systems were removing posts that generated between 3 to 5% of the views of hate speech on the platform and 0.6%, less than 1% of all content that violated Facebook's policies against violence and incitement. Facebook spokesperson Andy Stone said that these percentages referred to posts that were removed using AI and didn't include other actions the company takes to reduce how many people view hate speech, including ranking posts lower in news feeds. Ranking it lower still means people see it, though, because you're not actually killing it. Facebook says that by measure, the prevalence of content that violates its policies has been shrinking, and that is what the company considers the most important metric. I can't speak today, I'm sorry. Now, the statistics contrast starkly with the confidence in AI presented by Facebook's top executives, including CEO Mark Zuckerberg, who previously said that he expected Facebook would use AI to detect, quote, the vast majority of problematic content by the end of 2019. Here we are 2 years later. Now, the company often says that nearly all of the hate speech it takes down was discovered by AI before it was reported by users. It calls this figure its proactive detection rate, and it has reached nearly 98% as of earlier this year. Again, that is according to Facebook, because civil rights groups and academics have long been skeptical that the AI detection rate shows meaningful progress, saying it doesn't seem to match the experiences of their own studies. And I quote, Rashad Robinson, president of the civil rights group Color of Change, which helped organize an advertiser boycott of Facebook last year due to what it called the company's failure to control hate speech. And I quote, they won't ever show their work. We ask What's the numerator? What's the denominator? How did you get that number? And then it's like crickets. And there you go. And I think what's interesting here is that as Facebook starts taking credit to say, we've seen a reduction in hate speech online, what was very interesting was 2020 and the beginning of 2021 saw an exodus of users leaving Facebook and other social media platforms like Twitter due to the banning of President Donald Trump, or I should say now former President Donald Trump, then President Donald Trump, as he was banned after the January 6th, event at the Capitol. And so by virtue of that, other social media platforms like Gab and Parler started receiving an influx of these people that were oftentimes attributed to this. Obviously, they're not the only ones doing these kinds of things, and not all of them are doing it. But if you are going to get a subset of those people out of, let's say, your social media platform, but naturally, you're going to see a statistical fall in that kind of speech, and they are taking credit for it. Not to mention the fact that they are simply just making up the stats here and tweaking things so that they simply look better. And to the point of, Rashad Robinson, if they're not showing their work, if they're not actually giving us the raw data and the numbers for everybody else to analyze and form conclusions based on their internal policies, practices, and procedures, what we are talking about is a massively untrustworthy company per everything that we've learned in the last couple of weeks and everything I've been talking about for years. And now I've got proof, and now I've got backup, and I'm glad Frances Haugen, whatever, came out. I am thrilled for that because I basically have a big I told you so to anybody that is shaking their head at me as I go after Facebook over the years. And I say that to say we have this evidence that shows they can't be trusted, which means the numbers that they present without actual fact checks, without confirmation, without showing your work, simply can't stand. So this is a huge problem. Facebook continues to have this issue. They are going to continue as the largest platform to have things like incitement to violence, hate speech, shooting videos, and all of that. And if they are relying on the artificial intelligence that has been quite frankly mediocre at nailing these things according to their own internal documents, despite what they say publicly, we're all in some trouble. And I'm not even saying here, I'm not even having this debate about censorship or anything else. You can agree with censorship. You cannot agree with censorship. The bottom line is that Facebook is a private company. You do not have to use their products. They can enforce whatever policies they want to enforce as a private company. They can discriminate in that way as well. That is simply the law because racist speech is not a protected class here in the United States. And so I am not getting into the free speech debate. If you think Facebook should be the complete Wild West and open, then it should be regulated like a utility platform, by the federal government, in which case anybody can say anything, et cetera, outside of crime. So there you go. You take that for what it's worth. You have your own arguments on that. I am talking specifically about their artificial intelligence not doing what they claim it does, and it's not doing it by a mile. And that's a huge problem because if Facebook is telling the world, oh, well, our artificial intelligence is going to be so good so soon to basically stop all of this insanity and basically have the world collectively calm down, they are lying to us. And the Wall Street Journal just proved it. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at Nick AESP, where I won't lie to you, but Facebook will. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please stay private. Thanks, everyone.